The first time the lights flickered, no one noticed except me. I was standing next to the cake. 38 candles. One for every year of my painfully average life. The chocolate frosting was already melting under the heat. People were clapping. Miranda was smiling. And I was watching a text message appear on her lock screen. The phone buzzed on the gift table. A name I'd never seen. Just initials, RL, followed by a red heart emoji, and "Can't wait to taste you again." I don't know why I looked. I wasn't snooping. The screen just lit up and stared right into my skull like it wanted me to see it. She hadn't noticed me. She was across the room, waving to her coworkers. My mouth went dry. I glanced around to see if anyone else saw it. Saw me, really, because in that moment, something shifted. It was like my whole life split quietly down the middle, but everyone just kept drinking champagne and humming along to the birthday song. That rooftop party was supposed to be a surprise. I wasn't supposed to know, but I overheard her on the phone 2 days earlier in the bathroom, whispering to someone, "He deserves at least one night of feeling special." I assumed it was about me. That was my first mistake. The second mistake? Believing I was still the main character in my own life. When the jazz band started playing "Isn't She Lovely," she grabbed the mic and said she wanted to make a toast. The crowd quieted. I should have run then. I really should have. She held up her glass and said, "Tonight isn't just about Lowell turning 38. It's about choosing joy, even when it hurts. It's about letting go of what no longer sets your soul on fire." There was a polite chuckle or two. I forced a smile. She continued, "Sometimes, love looks like safety. And sometimes, safety looks like a cage with soft pillows." That one landed like a silent bomb. Then she looked directly at me and said, "Thank you for being the safest person I've ever known." Applause. But my heart? It sank like stone. Because her hand was resting on someone else's arm. And I hadn't even noticed him arrive. Tall, gray suit, smug eyes. Holding a drink he didn't even pretend to sip. He was watching me the whole time, with this look like, "You still don't get it, do you?" I got it. When they walked off together, no one followed. No one clapped. No one said a word. I stood there, alone, next to a cake no one touched. I stared at those flickering candles, at my name scrawled in icing, at my life melting under the weight of her performance. But the worst part wasn't the silence, or the betrayal, or the fact that everyone saw it happen and said nothing. The worst part was what happened an hour later, after everyone left, after I sat there trying to breathe, after I checked my phone and found 0 missed calls, 0 texts, like I was the ghost at a party that never even needed me. Then it buzzed. Unknown number. I picked up, and there she was, voice soft, like nothing had happened. She said, "You know I love you, right?" I didn't speak. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't even know who I was anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even sit down. I walked. Not to anywhere in particular, just in circles. Around the block, then around another. I passed the same closed coffee shop 4 times. The "Happy Birthday Lowell" sign was still in the window of my building's lobby. Miranda had ordered it custom, with little stars around the name. That detail made my stomach twist. She cared enough to order stars, but not enough to keep her hand off another man's chest in front of my friends. I didn't even have my jacket. My party shirt was half untucked and smelled like frosting and cold night air. Every few minutes, my phone buzzed. One of the party guests. A coworker. My sister. But not her. Not Miranda. She only called once. "You know I love you, right?" That's what she said. Like a sitcom character smoothing over a laugh track. Then silence. As if those words were supposed to glue me back together. I didn't respond. I just hung up. And then I blocked the number. Not because I was brave, but because I knew I'd crumble if she said anything else in that voice. The next morning, I went back to the apartment. I didn't know if she'd be there. She was. Still wearing the same green velvet dress from the night before. She was sitting on the couch barefoot, scrolling through her phone like she was checking restaurant reviews, not recovering from publicly humiliating her husband. When she looked up, her face didn't even register guilt. It was more like inconvenience. "You look like hell," she said. "Where'd you go?" I didn't answer. I just stared at her. The mascara was still smudged under her eyes, and there was a champagne stain on her sleeve. It hit me then, this woman, this stranger who looked like my wife, had ruined me in high heels and didn't even untie her hair afterward. She stood up slowly and said, "Look, before you get all dramatic." "All dramatic?" I repeated, my voice cracking without warning. "You kissed someone else at my birthday party. In front of my mother." She scoffed. It wasn't about your mom. That was her defense. That was her opening move. Not remorse. Not shock. Not even denial. I sat down because my knees were starting to shake. Not from rage. From sadness. Just pure, dense grief that felt like it weighed 10,000 pounds and was tied to my ribs. I don't understand, I said. Why? Why would you do it like that? Why make it public? She crossed her arms and shifted her weight like a child being scolded. Because I wanted it to be real. To force it out. You would have never listened otherwise. Listened to what? That we're over, Lowell. We've been over. I've just been too afraid to say it. It felt like she had reached inside my chest and turned off the lights. I looked at her, standing there, so calm, so casual, and I felt small. Like a temporary placeholder in her life she forgot to delete. I wasn't even the villain. I was just the footnote to her awakening. I threw you a party, she added, as if that meant anything. You used my party as your breakup stage, I said quietly. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of orange juice, and took a sip like she hadn't just emotionally assassinated her husband 12 hours ago. That was when I asked the question I never thought I'd ask her. Who is he? She paused. Not because she was guilty, but because she was calculating. Does it matter? She finally said, without looking back. That was my answer. I left. Not dramatically. Not with slamming doors. I just picked up my keys and walked out again. This time, I didn't wonder. I got in my car and drove until I reached a motel 2 towns over. I didn't pack a bag. Didn't take my toothbrush. I didn't even have a charger. I lay on the stiff mattress with the TV off and the ceiling fan spinning, and I kept hearing her voice on the phone. You know I love you, right? I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just lay there with my hands over my face, whispering the words I knew no one would ever say to me again. I would have never done that to you. The motel room smelled like cleaning chemicals and microwaved regret. I lay there staring at the popcorn ceiling, wondering how I ended up 38 years old, wrapped in a scratchy polyester blanket, with no toothbrush, no explanation, and a marriage that imploded like it had been waiting for a reason. I didn't call anyone. I couldn't. What would I say? Hey, remember that beautiful woman who toasted me in front of 70 people and then strolled out with another man like she'd just nailed a Broadway exit? Yeah, she's my wife. Was. Still technically is. The walls were thin. I heard someone having an argument in the room next to mine. Something about a dog chewing through a bag of weed. It sounded ridiculous, absurd, even. And yet, somehow, still less pathetic than the fact that I was lying there fully clothed with my shoes still on, unable to cry, unable to move, just suspended. Like grief was an elevator and I was stuck between floors. At around 2:30 a.m., I opened my phone. No new messages. Not even a follow-up from her. But there was one voicemail from earlier in the day I hadn't noticed. From a number I didn't recognize. I played it. Hey Lowell. It's Nate. I was at the party last night. I work with Miranda. I probably shouldn't be calling you, but look, man. I just thought you should know. Something's been going on for a while. I thought you already knew. If you want to talk or ask me anything, I'm around. I sat up so fast my vision blurred. Who the hell was Nate? I didn't know the name, but I remembered someone awkwardly trying to shake my hand at the bar last night. A guy in a black dress shirt with sleeves rolled up and a quiet kind of guilt in his eyes. I thought he was just another coworker Miranda dragged along. Apparently not. I called him back. He answered on the first ring. Lowell. Yeah, I said. Who are you? There was a pause. I could hear him shifting around like he had been waiting for this call but suddenly regretted it. I work on Miranda's team. I sit near her. We've talked a bit. And I've seen things, man. I've seen her meet with someone. After hours. Same guy. Over and over. What guy? I don't know his name. Tall, sharp suit. Drives a gray Lexus. He picks her up sometimes around 6. They think no one notices, but people do. I didn't know you didn't know. I felt nauseous. Why didn't you say anything sooner? I asked. Because it wasn't my business, he said, sounding ashamed. But what she did to you last night, that was too much. No one deserves that. I thanked him. I can't even remember what I said. My hands were shaking. Not from rage. From helplessness. It was like suddenly realizing everyone at the table knew your wife was playing a game you weren't even invited to. I checked Miranda's social media. Nothing. No posts. No stories. Just the same profile picture of us at the lake house from 2 years ago, the one I had set up on a tripod and framed perfectly, like some fool who believed in stillness. I zoomed in. She had her hand on my chest. I remembered that moment so clearly. I had just told her I felt like I was finally enough. And she said, "You've always been more than enough." I believed her. Of course I did. And now I didn't know if that hand on my chest was a lie, or if I was just the in-between, the placeholder until someone riskier, louder, more alive came along. I drove home just after sunrise. My eyes burned, my head pounded, and I didn't know what I was walking into. A confrontation? A goodbye? A confession? But when I walked in, the apartment was empty. Not empty, as in she was gone. Empty, as in everything was gone. Her clothes, her shoes, her laptop, her ridiculous pink water bottle she took everywhere. All of it. Gone. She had moved out. Just like that. I walked into the bedroom and found a note on my pillow. It read, "You'll be okay, Lowell. You always are. Please don't hate me." There was no signature. No explanation. Just 6 words that sounded more like a eulogy than a goodbye. I sat down on the edge of the bed and tried to feel something. Anything. But I couldn't. My life didn't collapse in a dramatic roar. It didn't explode. It evaporated. And somewhere in the back of my head, her voice still echoed like a broken lullaby. "You know I love you, right?" And I hated how badly I still wanted to believe her. The silence inside the apartment was the loudest sound I've ever heard. I didn't call it our apartment anymore. Not mentally. It was just a place with walls and a floor, and the ghost of a woman who used to laugh in the hallway while brushing her teeth. Her closet was empty. The drawer where she kept her sleep mask, her lavender lip balm, her ridiculous heatless curlers, all gone. Even her charger cord, the one I always accidentally used and got scolded for, was missing. She didn't leave a trace. Except for that note. "You'll be okay, Lowell. You always are. Please don't hate me." Hate her? That was the problem. I couldn't even muster up hatred. All I had were questions. Heavy ones. Ugly ones. Unanswered ones. I didn't eat that day. Didn't shower. I just sat at the kitchen table staring at the chair she used to pull out with her foot while reading emails. There was a moment when I reached for my phone to text her. I even typed, "Where are you?" But I didn't send it. Because I already knew she was exactly where she wanted to be. The next 3 days were a haze. I didn't go into work. I didn't call anyone. I ignored my sister's texts, declined my manager's calls, and avoided every mirror in the apartment because I couldn't stand looking at the man who had let this happen. And that's what it felt like. Not just that she betrayed me, but that I allowed it. I'd watched the signs flicker like dying lights and told myself it was just power surges. That everything would fix itself. That we would. It wasn't until the 4th day that the doorbell rang. I froze. My heart thudded like it hadn't beaten in years. Part of me, some pathetic fragment, thought maybe it was her. Maybe she'd changed her mind. Maybe she came back to explain, or even to apologize, or to say that she made a mistake and still loved me. I even pictured it. Her hair tied back, no makeup, mascara smudged from crying. I stood up slowly, terrified of what I'd find on the other side of the door. It wasn't her. It was a courier. He handed me a sealed manila envelope, asked for a signature, and left without a word. I stared at the envelope like it might explode. Then I opened it. Inside were divorce papers. Already filled out. Already signed. No message. No cover note. Just her name scribbled at the bottom of every page with mechanical precision. I had to sit down. Not because I was surprised, but because seeing her name on a document that ended us was more final than any goodbye she could have given. I didn't sign. Not right away. I needed to know more. So I called Nate, the guy from her office. The one who'd left me that voicemail. He answered, sounding nervous. "Nate," I said, my voice trembling more than I liked. "I need you to tell me everything." He hesitated for a moment, then said, "Okay, but not over the phone. Can you meet me?" We met that evening at a quiet diner on the outskirts of town. The kind with peeling vinyl booths and waitresses who call you Han, even if you look like a human train wreck. I hadn't shaved. I hadn't changed. I looked like the before picture in a commercial for heartbreak recovery. Nate sat across from me, fidgeting with his glass of water. "I don't want to get involved," he said first. "But I've seen things. I can't pretend I haven't." "Who is he?" I asked. "The guy from the party." He looked around, lowered his voice, and said a name. "Reed Langston." The name didn't mean anything to me, but apparently it meant a lot at her job. Nate explained that Reed was a senior partner with one of the firm's biggest clients, a financial consultant who'd been working closely with Miranda for the past 6 months on some branding campaign. I sat there, trying to recall any time she'd mentioned his name. She hadn't. He's persuasive, Nate said carefully. He's the kind of guy who walks into a room and doesn't have to say anything. Everyone just knows he's in charge. And Miranda, she changed around him. I nodded slowly. Changed how? She got colder. Sharper. She started dressing different. Talking different. Like she was constantly being watched and wanted to impress someone. And no one said anything? We assumed you knew, he said again. We thought maybe it was open. Open. That word hit like a slap. It wasn't open. It was a locked room she'd sealed behind my back. I left the diner feeling sick. Not because of what I learned, but because I knew this wasn't over. I hadn't heard from her. She hadn't asked about the papers. She hadn't apologized. She hadn't even pretended to care. But someone else had. Later that night, as I sat in the living room surrounded by shadows and broken silence, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. It said, I know what she did to you. You don't know the whole story. No name. No context. Just that. And for the first time since she left, my grief twisted into something new, something colder. Curiosity. Because maybe Miranda didn't just betray me. Maybe she was hiding something much worse. I stared at the message for almost 20 minutes before I replied. My thumbs hovered above the screen, trembling. The words weren't threatening. They weren't dramatic. They were just cryptic enough to dig under my skin and make a home in the hollow place where my trust used to live. Who is this? I finally typed. The response came instantly. Can't say yet. Just meet me tomorrow. 3 p.m. Garfield Park. Behind the fountain. I hated how quickly I typed back, okay. I should have deleted it. Blocked the number. But when your life collapses in a single public moment, you start chasing every loose thread. Because what if one of them leads to the truth? What if one of them tells you that what happened to you wasn't just pathetic, but calculated? The next day was gray and sticky with humidity. I hadn't slept. I still hadn't signed the papers. And part of me kept hoping that maybe, just maybe, this mystery message wasn't from some troll or gossip, but from someone who could make sense of the nightmare Miranda left behind. Garfield Park was nearly empty. A few joggers. An older couple feeding squirrels. No one behind the fountain. I stood there for 15 minutes, scanning every figure that passed, until I heard someone clear their throat. It was a woman. Mid-30s maybe. Red hair tied in a loose knot. Black sunglasses. She looked like someone trying very hard not to be seen, which, ironically, made her stand out more. You're Lowell, she said, stepping closer. Her voice was low, careful, like she'd been rehearsing this moment. Who are you? I asked. She removed the sunglasses. I used to work with Miranda, she said. Until a month ago. Okay. My name's Geneva. I was in operations. I didn't know everything, but I saw enough. Enough of what? She glanced around again, then looked me dead in the eye. Miranda's not just cheating, Lowell. She's involved in something bigger. Something that could destroy you if you don't get ahead of it. I blinked. What are you talking about? She pulled out her phone and tapped the screen. Then she turned it toward me. A series of emails. Screenshots. Dozens of them. All with the subject line. Proposal draft, Langston Financial. Most were internal threads between Miranda, her boss, and someone tagged only as RL. But what caught my eye was the attachment names. Stuff like offshore retainer.zip, option 3, client, override, budget obscure narrative. This isn't branding, Geneva said. This is corporate laundering. Quietly. Carefully. And Miranda is neck deep in it. Reed Langston isn't just some client. He's a fixer. A clean-up man for people with money and zero conscience. I stepped back. You're saying she's stealing? She's redirecting. Masking. Helping people hide assets and rebrand budgets and influencer payouts. It's technically legal until you get caught. But if it goes under? Everyone who touched those files takes the fall. My mouth was dry. But why? Why would she do this? She hesitated. She thinks she's in love with him. That sentence hurt more than it should have. I knew it. I'd seen it. But hearing it like that, clean, cruel, unwrapped, punched the air out of me. She's not thinking straight, Geneva continued. He's promising her big things. Trips. A position in his private firm. She's drunk on it. She doesn't see what he's using her for. I shook my head, trying to piece this all together. But why come to me? Why now? Because I liked you, she said simply. You used to bring Miranda lunch. You'd wave to us from the lobby like an idiot. No one waves anymore. You looked happy. and I watched her ruin it. There was a pause. And because I know what Reed does to people who become liabilities. If she thinks you might expose something or react badly, he'll make sure you don't. A chill ran through me. I looked down at her phone again, then at her. Do you have proof? She nodded. I saved everything. Emails, logs, audio. I even recorded a conversation they had in the office one night when they thought no one was around. It's risky, but I knew I might need it. I didn't know whether to feel grateful or completely terrified. She handed me a flash drive. Don't plug it in at home. Use a public computer. No Wi-Fi. Just look. Decide what you want to do. Then she started to walk away. Wait, what am I supposed to do with this? She turned and said, protect yourself. She's already protecting herself. That's why she moved out so fast. She's not hiding from you. She's hiding from what might come next. And with that, Geneva disappeared around the path, leaving me standing there with a drive full of secrets, a stomach full of acid, and a marriage that suddenly felt like the tip of a much larger collapse. That night, I sat in the library downtown, in front of a dusty public PC, hands shaking as I slid the flash drive into the port. And when the folders opened, I realized my wife hadn't just shattered me. She may have tried to erase me. The computer was ancient. It made a wheezing sound as if it were protesting my presence, and the mouse had this gross, sticky feel like it had been touched by too many bored fingers over too many years. But I didn't care. All that mattered was what was in that flash drive. Geneva said the files would explain everything and ruin everything, depending on who looked. When the folders opened, I expected spreadsheets or maybe a few damning emails. What I found instead was an archive, neatly organized, time-stamped, labeled. This wasn't a leak. It was a library. Geneva hadn't just collected evidence. She had documented an entire timeline of my wife's descent into whatever hellish version of ambition had consumed her. The first folder was titled Initial Meetings. Inside were calendar screenshots from Miranda's shared office app. I saw entries going back 6 months. Dinner with our client meet, private, Langston pitch, offsite. Some of them overlapped with nights she told me she was working late at the office. I remember ordering pizza and falling asleep on the couch waiting for her, thinking I was being a supportive husband. The second folder was emails. Dozens. All written in the language of business, professional but coded. Words like redirect, repackage, and strategically vanish. At first glance, you might think they were just about rebranding strategies. But when I dug deeper, opening the PDF attachment sheets sent to Reed, I found invoices for services that didn't exist, accounts tied to shell agencies, payments for consultations from influencers who hadn't posted since 2019. One file had a spreadsheet with my name on it. My name. It was buried under a tab labeled Contingency Support. I clicked it open. It was a list of expenses. My health insurance. My pension deposits. Our joint savings account. Notes next to each line. Shifted under Solo Access, May 9th. Lowell unaware. No inquiry triggered. My heart dropped. I'd logged into our shared account 2 weeks ago and thought everything looked normal. But she had been slowly rerouting funds, my funds, into an account listed only as Langston, Trust, SV02. That's when the full weight of it hit me. She wasn't just leaving me. She was extracting me from my own life. Quietly. Legally. Permanently. But there was more. In a folder named Audio Logs, I found a series of recordings. One was labeled simply, Office, Thursday late. I clicked play. I heard her voice. Laughing. Soft. Unrecognizable. The way she used to sound with me in the very beginning. Then Reed's voice. He won't fight it. You said he folds under pressure. Her. He's passive. He gets overwhelmed and just backs off. He'll sign anything if I act like I'm sad enough. Him. You're sure. Her. He still thinks I love him. He always will. I don't know how long I sat there with my face in my hands. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. But I just sat there, motionless, as if my body refused to process anything more. She didn't just plan to leave. She didn't just fall for someone else. She orchestrated a slow, deliberate dismantling of my life and counted on my weakness to make it clean. And she wasn't wrong. I had let her. Every step of the way. After I composed myself enough to breathe, I copied the folder onto the desktop and deleted the flash drive history. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet. I just knew I needed it safe. On my way out of the library, I got another text. This time it wasn't anonymous. It was from Miranda. Let's not drag this out. I left the final signature copy with your lawyer. It's best for both of us. Best for both of us. No apology. No guilt. Just that same cold efficiency she used on client accounts. I replied, not to beg, not to fight, but to say something I never thought I'd have the strength to say. You left me a puzzle. I just finished it. I know everything. No reply. Not right away. But 20 minutes later, my phone lit up again. A blocked number. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. Until finally, I picked up. Silence. Then her voice, quieter than I'd ever heard it. Lowell, what did you find? I didn't answer. I let her sit in it. Let her feel that same creeping dread I had felt in that library chair as I watched the truth undo every kind word she ever said to me. Then I hung up. Because for the first time in my life, I realized something. She didn't love me. She feared what I'd become now that I'd finally opened my eyes. I didn't sleep that night. Again. But this time, it wasn't because of heartbreak. It wasn't because I missed her, or because I kept replaying her laugh with that man, or her voice saying she still loved me. This time, I didn't sleep because my brain wouldn't stop unraveling everything she'd tried to knot up in secret. The audio, the documents, the rerouted funds, her calm voice in the recordings. That plan she laid out with Reed like I was some clueless placeholder standing in the way of her next chapter. I wasn't just the guy she stopped loving. I was the liability she had to erase neatly, without leaving a trail of noise. Well, I'd found the noise. I was the noise now. The morning after I sent that message, I expected her to go quiet, like always. I expected her to ghost me until her lawyer confirmed my signature, until the divorce was finalized and I was legally scrubbed from her life like red wine on white carpet. Instead, she showed up. Not with Reed. Alone. I heard the knock and didn't move at first. Just stood behind the door, listening, staring at the wood grain and wondering if I had the nerve to open it. But something in me, something frayed and tired, reached for the handle and turned anyway. She was standing there like she had every right to. Hair tied back like always when she needed to look composed. No makeup. No heels. Just jeans and a white blouse, like she wanted to look clean. Honest. I should have slammed the door in her face. I didn't. She spoke first. Can we talk? I stared at her. My voice was buried somewhere beneath all the junk she left behind. I thought you preferred speaking behind my back, I finally said. She sighed, like I was the one making this difficult. Can I come in? I didn't move. I won't stay long, she added. I know you know. Geneva warned me. So Geneva had told her. That meant she was scared. She wouldn't have come otherwise. I stepped aside, wordless. She walked in like she still owned the place, though her eyes flicked around like a stranger visiting ruins. I followed her into the living room, where she turned and faced me with her arms crossed, as if she were preparing a presentation, not an apology. You're upset, she said. I almost laughed. Upset? You dismantled our marriage like it was a misfiled report. You made me look like a fool in front of everyone I care about. You took my money. You planned it with another man. And you're standing here trying to manage me like I'm a disgruntled intern. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. Why? Why did you do it this way? Why not just leave? Her face twitched. Just slightly. A flicker of discomfort. Because I didn't trust you to let go. I blinked. What? You're not strong, Lowell. You don't let go of things easily. You hold on. You apologize even when things aren't your fault. I didn't want a drawn-out war. I didn't want to hurt you. But I couldn't do it slowly, or you'd never accept it. So you humiliated me instead. I needed to force the break. You were so comfortable. That word. Comfortable. It stabbed harder than any insult. She sat down on the edge of the couch, barely sinking into the cushion. Reed, she began. Don't say his name, I snapped. She closed her mouth. I know what you two did, I continued. I know about the rebranding scheme. The dummy invoices. I saw the emails. The audio. I know what you've been hiding. Her posture changed. Gone was the calm strategist. What sat across from me now was someone who finally realized they weren't in control of the board anymore. You don't understand what you're getting into, she said, voice low. You think it's just shady business, but there are people involved who don't want this exposed. Reed isn't just a client. I know exactly what he is, I replied. And I know what you are, now. We sat in silence. Then she said the most ridiculous thing she could have possibly said in that moment. I didn't mean for you to get hurt. I actually laughed. It came out dry and bitter, like the punchline to a joke I didn't know I'd been part of. You designed every part of this to hurt me. You planned it down to the last fake invoice. No, she said quickly. That was about survival. This? Us? That was real. I loved you, Lowell. I still do, in a way. In a way, I repeated. And there it was. The pathetic truth of all of it. She didn't come here to apologize. She came to manage fallout. To control the narrative before I made noise. But the problem was, I was the noise now. And she didn't know how to handle that. I walked to the door and opened it. Leave. She didn't move. You're not safe, she said. If you take this public, if you hand over that data, Reed will bury you. Then he better bring a big shovel, I said. Still, she sat there. And then, as if out of habit, as if it was the final card in her broken little deck, she looked up at me with glassy eyes and whispered, You know I love you, right? I looked at her for the last time. No, I know you never did. She didn't follow me when I walked out the door that day. No desperate last attempt to fix things, no dramatic tears on the doorstep, no slow-motion scene where we collapse into each other's arms. Just silence. The kind of silence that makes you realize something important. Not everyone who says they love you actually means to stay. Some people only love the version of you that doesn't inconvenience their ambition. I drove straight to the office of a man my buddy Marcus had recommended, an attorney who specializes in financial crimes. The kind with a clock for a brain and a hammer for a heart. I handed him the flash drive. I told him everything. I didn't embellish. I didn't exaggerate. I told him I was angry, hurt, humiliated. I told him I didn't want revenge. I wanted protection. I wanted the truth to matter. Within days, the wheels began turning. Quietly, carefully. Legal filings. Disclosures. Anonymous tips to the SEC. My lawyer worked faster than I expected. In Geneva? She didn't disappear like I feared. She became my ally. She gave a sworn statement. She forwarded backup logs. And while Miranda and Reed thought they'd scrubbed everything clean, they had overlooked one thing. Me. The man they thought would crumble. The man they thought was too soft to fight back. Weeks passed. Then months. And in a twist I couldn't have predicted, Reed Langston's empire started to crack. The firm dropped him. A major client issued a public statement about contractual irregularities. Miranda vanished from LinkedIn. And one evening, just as I was leaving the grocery store, I got a call from my attorney. Check your email, he said. It was a scanned letter. From Miranda. Not dramatic. Not emotional. But different. It said, I accept full legal responsibility for the misuse of funds. Please do not involve anyone else. Lowell deserves closure, not chaos. I'm sorry. For the first time in over a year, I slept. Really slept. No dreams. No pain. Just silence. But this time, it was the kind that felt like healing, not erasure. And then, something even stranger happened. One morning, I got a card in the mail. No return address. Just a simple cream-colored envelope. Inside was a small square photo. A picture of me. From the party. I was standing under the lights, holding that untouched cupcake. Looking stunned. Alone. Forgotten. But on the back of the photo was handwriting I didn't recognize. It said, That was your ending. But not your story. Start writing again. I don't know who sent it. Geneva swore it wasn't her. But I keep it on my desk. Because they were right. That was an ending. But not the story. Now, almost a year later, I live in a different apartment. Smaller, but mine. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I take long walks at night without checking my phone. And for the first time in my adult life, I don't flinch when someone asks me what I want. I joined a local community class, watercolor landscapes. There's this woman named Elise who sits 2 rows down. She laughs too loud at her own jokes and wears socks that never match. I haven't asked her out yet. I'm not rushing anything. But last week, she asked if I wanted to split a sandwich during break. Turkey and provolone. She brought 2 cookies. Called it insurance for awkward small talk. I smiled the whole way home. No more secrets. No more performances. No more cupcakes with my face on them while someone else holds her hand behind my back. Just real moments. Quiet ones. Honest ones. Maybe love isn't about fireworks. Maybe it's about finally realizing you were never too soft. You were just waiting for someone who wouldn't turn softness into strategy. So if you're reading this and you're where I was, watching someone walk out, confused, hurt, shattered, just know this. They don't get to write your ending. You do. And mine. It finally feels like a beginning.